This is a Hebrew read-along video for 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 14 to 25. In our passage today, we're going to encounter two Satans, or more precisely, more accurately, two occurrences of Satan. And so that's rather interesting, I think. But before we actually get into our passage, let's do a little preview. So get your popcorn ready, and we will do a little trailer on what we're going to encounter today. This is aside from the regular reading. Of course, we'll read the passage, we'll think about what it means, but along the way, we'll encounter a few things. First is I'm going to track, fairly early on here after the first verse, the usage of Satan. It won't be exhaustive. We're not going to do everything, but hopefully enough to get a sense of how that term has developed and what it can mean, different nuances in different places in the Bible. We're going to encounter a PL. There's a verse where the PL is an intensification of the Cal. PL doesn't always do that, but sometimes it does, and we have a nice example in our passage today. There'll be just a touch of Aramaic. It's just an example, just a little thing in passing. It's not really much there. Two books. There are two books I want to introduce to you. One is a Bible atlas, and the other is a Hebrew grammar. These are both books that I use, that I value a lot. I think you will enjoy them. They're not particularly expensive. And so this is an advertisement, but it's not a paid advertisement. I have no sponsorship from them or anything like that. Just two books that I use and I think you will find useful. We're going to look at a little bit of syntax, specifically a couple uses of key. Key is one of those terms, those words in Hebrew. I think it's a conjunction. I think that's how to label it. That is abstract and has a number of different uses, quite a wide range of usages. And it's a bit hard to conceptualize. And sometimes you see it in your passage, it's like, okay, which kind of key is this? So we're going to look at a couple usages today. And as we encounter it in the future, we'll look at other examples. We're going to think about what to do with an abrupt story ending. We have a story, a narrative that ends just like dropping off a cliff. So what do we do with that? Is that intentional? Is it unintentional? Does it have any purpose? We'll see an example here today. We're going to do a little bit of participant tracking a actor and a subject, actually not just a subject, tracking someone in a text. And we'll see how it reinforces the message of the story. And related to that, we're going to see how the way or the manner in which a story is told, how it's constructed, how it's written, can align and support what the narrator tells us directly. So narratorial material is where the narrator is speaking to us directly, speaking to us, the reader. But then stories are embedded there. And it's interesting to see how they support one another. And we'll see that today. So here are a few previews of what we're going to encounter. Our first verse is verse 14, so let's go and listen to it. We'll listen to Shmuelov.
Vayakem Adonai Satan lishlomo.
Vayakem, not Vayakom, Vayakem. So this is Hiphil. Vayakem Adonai Satan lishlomo. So Yahweh, if this was Kal, Vayakom, that would mean Yahweh rose up. But this is not Kal, this is Hiphil, so it means he rose, he raised someone up or raised something up. In this case, a Satan lishlomo. So Yahweh raised up a Satan lishlomo for Solomon.
Et Hadad ha'adomi.
Et Hadad ha'adomi. And who was the Satan? You got a name. Hadad ha'adomi. Hadad the Edomite.
Mizera hamelech hu be'edom.
Mizera hamelech hu be'edom. So who was this Hadad, this Edomite? Mizera hamelech, from the descendants, or a descendant of the king, the Edomite king, hu be'edom, who was in Edom, okay, the king who was the king of Edom. Who here is functioning quite a lot like asher, a relative marker. Okay, so let's go look at this. So in our first verse, in our text, verse 14, we have the first occurrence of Satan. We have Satan number one, or Satan number one. I shouldn't say Satan, because if I say Satan like that in English, then we're thinking the devil, right? So I should train myself to say Satan. So we're just staying with the Hebrew word. We're not translating it right now. We're just using it. Here, it really means adversary, okay? Someone who is opposing somebody else, who is an adversary, who's fighting against them in some fashion. And here, I have a quote here from Gus Conkle. Gus Conkle was actually my first Hebrew professor at Providence Theological Seminary in southern Manitoba many years ago, about 20 years ago. And he wrote a commentary, I don't think at that time, I think later, on 1st and 2nd Kings. So he writes about this. He says, in later Hebrew, this word for adversary meant prosecutor. He's talking about the word Satan. So Satan moves from being adversary to prosecutor. And he gives some examples. In some instances, a member of God's court, from Job and Zechariah. Eventually, the term became a name for the devil. So early on, it's not a proper name. It's not a proper noun. It's not a name. It's a descriptor. And then it becomes a name. So adversary moves to prosecutor, moves to devil. Okay? Now, he's not the only one who writes about this. We have Kogan, Mordechai Kogan in Hebrew. I'm quite sure that's how it's said. In English, Mordecai Kogan, I assume. He's at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I was trying to find how to pronounce his name. So I searched YouTube. I found a video where he's speaking, but he's the one presenting, and so nobody says his name. So anyway. Okay, so Kogan says, the reference here, this is with respect to this verse, is to a human foe, an opponent, as in 5:18, and he lists some other verses here. He says, in late biblical Hebrew, LBH, late biblical Hebrew, Satan, the Hebrew word Satan, developed the meaning prosecutor, Zechariah and Job, and eventually became the name for the one who incites to sinful acts, 1 Chronicles 21. Now I want to take a look at some of these verses that both Gus Conkle and Kogan quoted. We're not going to look at all of them, but just a sampling. We'll start with Zechariah. So Zechariah chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Vayar'eni et Yehoshua HaKohen HaGadol. Vayar'eni. This is Hiphil. We see by the patach, A-class prefix vowel, i.e. class theme vowel, with a 1cs suffix. Okay. He showed me. In the Cal, it would be he saw. In the Hiphil, it's he showed. In the Niphal, it's he appeared. He caused himself to be shown. So here we have the Hiphil. So he showed me et Yehoshua, Joshua, HaKohen HaGadol, the great priest, the high priest. And the one doing the showing is a angelic, a heavenly guide in this vision that Zechariah is having. Okay, so he showed me Joshua, the high priest, Omed lifnei malach Adonai, standing before the angel of Yahweh. Okay, so you got the angel of Yahweh, and you got Joshua standing next to him. V'hasatan omed al yemino lesitno. Okay. Actually, Joshua's not standing next to the Malach Adonai, he's standing before him, right, in his presence. And next to Joshua is this Satan, Hasatan Omed, and the Satan, okay, was standing al yemino, to the right of him, to his right, that's Joshua's right, le sit, no, I assume it's Joshua's right, not the Malach Adonai. In any case, he's there to accuse to Satan, okay? This is the noun, this is the verb form. So the Satan is there to Satan Joshua. He's there to accuse Joshua. Of course, that's what fits the narrative. This is common in Hebrew for someone, to use the same root again. We just had one. Did I write it here? No, I didn't. We just had one in our Hebrew reading group. It just escapes me as to what it was. Okay, here it is. I just paused for a second in order to find it for you. This is Hezekiah. Vayevk Chezkiyahu bechi gadol. So bacha is to weep. Vayevk, this is and he wept. Hezekiah wept. Here's the subject. Chezkiyahu. Vayevk Chezkiyahu. Hezekiah wept. What did he weep? Bechi gadol, a great weep, a great weeping. So here is a noun form, and here is the verb form. Just like here, we got a noun, Satan. What does the Satan do? He satans. What did this weeper do? He wept. Right? Very common in Hebrew to use the same root. You vow vows, and you Satan satans, and you bachab bechi or whatever. So common type of construction. So here we have an accuser. Okay, prosecutor, that's the sense here. He's a prosecutor, and he's going to prosecute, he's going to accuse Joshua. We'll read the second verse as well. Vayomer Adonai el hasatan. Notice you do have the ha there, okay? The accuser. Let's call him the accuser. It's not really a name here. So Yahweh said to the accuser, Yig'ar Adonai becha hasatan. May Yahweh rebuke you, O accuser. V'yig'ar Adonai becha, same thing again, right? May Yahweh rebuke you, O Satan. May Yahweh rebuke you, Habocher Birushalayim, who chose Jerusalem. Okay, this is the Yahweh, which Yahweh? The Yahweh who chose Jerusalem. That's relevant because Haggai and Zechariah are both written at that time when the second temple is being rebuilt, but it's small and people got discouraged and they quit building it. And these two prophets come along, God sends them, Haggai and then Zechariah, to get them going again. And so here there's an accuser, and he's standing next to the high priest. The whole priestly system, there's opposition. And so who is going to rebuke the accuser? It's going to be Yahweh, the one who chose Jerusalem. Halo ze ud mutzal me'esh. Halo ze, question mark, interrogative hey, is this one, meaning Joshua, is this one not a burning stick, a firebrand, some translations say. Is this one not a firebrand, mutzal, from natsal, to deliver, this is hofal, passive. Is this one not a burning firebrand, delivered, saved, me'esh, from the fire? Okay? So Israel has come back, or a remnant has come back from exile. Things are difficult, and God is saying he's on their side, right? But there is an accuser, and this accuser here is doing his accusing. Another example. And I guess I should say here, the accuser is also an opposer, right? Someone who accuses is also an adversary. But the focus here is more judicial. He's standing next to Joshua in the presence of Yahweh, the presence of the Malach Adonai, in order to besmirch him. It's a little bit more specific than just opposing. Okay, another example, another text here that's relevant is Job. So we'll read a few verses from Job. Vayhi hayom, and the day came, maybe we could translate it that way. Vayavo'u b'nei ha'elohim, and the children, the sons of God, not the children, the sons of God came lehit yatsev al Adonai, to stand before Yahweh, or to station themselves, to position themselves. Yatsav in the Hiphil is to take your place. It's more than just to stand. You're not just standing around, you're taking your place. So these B'nai HaElohim, who exactly they are, is a little interesting, but they came into God's courtyard, Yahweh's courtyard, and took their place. Vayavo gam hasatan betocham. And also the accuser, we'll call him the accuser here, the Satan, came in their midst. Okay, so you got the Bnei Elohim who are there, and this Hasatan. Verse 7. Vayomer Adonai el Hasatan. Yahweh said to the Satan, the accuser, Me'ayin tavo. From where have you come? Now, I realize this is a yiktol, so it's not a katal, but translators still translate it as a past. Yiktol is the slipperiest of all these forms, these verb forms that can really have quite a lot of different meanings. Anyway, we won't get into that right now. Me'ayin tavo. From where have you come? Okay. Where have you been, O accuser? Where are you coming from? Vaya'an hasatan et Adonai. And the accuser, the Satan, answered Yahweh, Vayomar, and he said, Meshut ba'aretz, from wandering in the land, from going about in the land. Umehit chalech ba, and from walking to and fro in it. Okay, these are clearly parallel lines, right? From going about in the land and from walking to and fro in it. So the accuser has been going all through the land. It says edits here. I don't think in context it means all of the earth. I think really it means, this is Job. I was thinking Zechariah. Zechariah would be all the land, like the land of Israel. But yeah, here, okay. All the known land. Earth is fine. He's walking around, he's looking, he's checking things out. He's looking for people to accuse, presumably. Verse 8. Vayomer Adonai el Hasatan. So now Yahweh said to the Satan, to the Satan, the accuser, Hasamta libecha al avdi Eov. Interrogative haze, we've got a question. Hasamta, samta come from seem, to place or to put. This is a katal, to amass. Have you set, libecha, lev meaning heart, levav or lev is heart, your heart. So have you set your heart? And heart in Hebrew, or levav in biblical Hebrew, is not the seat of emotions, but the seat of decision making. It's more your mind. So have you set your mind al avdi, on my servant Eov? Have you paid attention to my servant Eov? You've been walking around, you've been hit halechin, you've been shooting all over the land, right? Have you noticed my servant Job? God's the one who brings us up. Ki ein kamohu ba'aretz. Okay, for there exists none like him. Kamohu, is a k and a suffix here. The mem is an added bit that you get with some forms when you add a suffix, a pronominal suffix. So have you noticed, Job, that there is none like him in the earth? Ish tam v'yashar, a man complete, a man wholesome, a man with integrity and uprightness, okay? Yirei Elohim v'sar mera. This is actually an adjective here. Fearing God and turning aside, this is himself, turning himself aside, katal, from evil. That's how he characterizes what it means to be tam v'yashar. Fearing God and turning from evil. You fear towards God and you turn from evil. Verse 9. Vaya'an hasatan et Adonai. The accuser answered Yahweh, Vayomer, Vayomar, again, like here, Vayomar. I don't know why sometimes it's Vayomer and sometimes it's Vayomar. Stress is different and you got a different vowel there. But when they use what is, I never figured that out yet. Okay, so the accuser answers Yahweh and he says, Ha-chinam yirei Eov Elohim. Another hey interrogative. Looks a bit different than this, different vowel because you got that guttural there. Chinam is like for nothing. That's how they translate it here. Is it for nothing, yarei? Okay, this is the adjective, yarei. This is the verb. So adjective, verb, just slightly different here, yarei. Is it for nothing, yarei Eov, that Job fears God. Okay? So he's accusing, right? God points out his example servant, Eov, and the accuser is like, yeah, sure. Why is he serving you? Is it not because you're so good to him, right? And then we got the whole book of Job. So, too many clicks. The accuser, or the Satan here, is an accuser. And again, notice, ha-Satan, 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 ha-Satan. It's got the article on all of it. And then First Chronicles. This is the one that Kogan mentioned. I'm not sure if Kunkel did or not. Gus. I don't know. Anyway. Vaya'amod Satan al Yisrael. Satan stood, Vaya'amod al Yisrael. Okay. Against Israel, probably. Vayaset et David limnot et Yisrael. And this is apparently to incite, Vayaset in the Hiphil, Vayaset et David. And he incited or encouraged, in a negative sense, David to do a census of Israel, to count Israel, okay? No hey there, right? So this is not the accuser. We're now getting to the point where we'll probably have a proper noun, a name. That's what the commentators say. So Satan stood before Israel, or stood against Israel, and incited David to count Israel, to not trust in God, but to count and to apportion the people either for taxes or military purposes or both. So here we have the devil. Let's look at a couple more examples of the opposer. So this is what we have in our text, okay? Not really the accuser, not the devil, with our two Satans in 1 Kings 11. Let's look at two examples of what we actually have. 1 Samuel 29. The context here is the end of the book of Samuel, and there's a war between Saul and his armies and the Philistines. The Philistines are going against Saul, and David has been with Achish, a Philistine king in Gath, ever since 1 Samuel 21. So for 9 chapters. So he's been with them. He's run away from Saul, and he's been with these Philistines. Now the Philistines are attacking Saul, and we'll read what it says here. Vayikzefu alav sarei Philistine. The captains, the commanders of the Philistines, plural, bunch of commanders of the Philistine armies, were angry with him. With whom? With that one king, Achish, that had brought David along, or allowed him to come along. Vayomaru lo sarei Philistine. The commanders of the Philistines said to him, so they got angry at him, and they said to him, Hashev et ha'ish, send back the man, meaning David and his people. V'yashov et mikomo asher hifkadto sham. So send back the man that he may return. So this is first of all, it's not a vayikto, yashov, and it's not yashav, to dwell, it's shuv, to return. If it was yashav in the yiktol, which is what this is, the yiktol form, it would be yeshev, but it's not, it's yashov. Those two are easily confused. Okay, so send back, return him, the man, that he may return to his place which you have appointed him there. The place where you appointed, which is back in Gath. Velo yered, there we have a yiktol. Velo, or a yiktol, these are both yiktols. A yiktol that looks like yashav. Okay, first vav. Velo yered imanu b'milchama. So send him back that he may go to his place where you've assigned him, so that he will not come down with us, and he will not come down with us to battle, so that he will not come down with battle. They don't want him with them fighting Saul. Why? Velo yihyeh lanu, that he might not be with us, le Satan b'milchama, to Satan, or to be, because this is not a verb, to be a Satan in the battle. So what does this mean? To be an accuser? Was David going to stand on the sidelines and accuse the Philistines or accuse Saul or something? No. To oppose them in battle. He might be a turncoat, right? As soon as he gets there with Saul, he might flip around, fight for Saul. So this is a very clear example. Well, first of all, it's David as a Satan. Okay? So that's clear that, Satan is not always an evil person. Here it's David, the appointed one, the anointed one. And they were not afraid that David would accuse, they were afraid that he would oppose. So this is a clear example of Satan, a Satan as an opposer who's not an accuser. This is not a judicial context. And that's what we have in our text. That's what we'll see in our text. One more example. Okay, so we have an adversary, not a prosecutor. Numbers 22:22. Vayichar af Elohim ki holech hu. And the anger of God burned because he was going. This is, Numbers 22, is Balaam. So Balaam has been hired by Balak, the Moabite, to curse Israel, and Balaam has gone. And the anger of God is against him for going to go and curse Israel. So we read that there. And then we have Vayit Yatsev, just like we had before, the sons of God, the Bnei Elohim, they hit Yatsev, or whatever it was exactly, but they stationed themselves. So here, Vayit Yatsev Malach Adonai, the Malach, the angel of Yahweh, stationed himself baderach, on the way, on the road, le Satan lo, to be a Satan to him. Is the Malach Adonai going to be an accuser at this point of Balaam? No, he's there to oppose him, okay, to keep him from going, to turn him around. V'hu rochev al atono, and he was riding on his donkey. This is Balaam. Ushnei ne'arav imo, and two of his servants with him. So here we have an example of the angel of Yahweh as Satan. So clearly, whenever you see Satan, you can't just assume it's the devil. The angel of Yahweh is not the devil, obviously. But here he's functioning as an opposer. He didn't come to accuse Balaam, he came to oppose Balaam. He's an adversary.